Hello, my name is Jared Barnett, and welcome to this video tutorial and explanation for my game Metallic Racing. Metallic Racing is a 4-player race game, where the key gimmick is that instead of moving your own piece, you are only allowed to move the pieces representing the 3 opposing players. Along with this, there are cards that exist in order to help speed along the game and make it more engaging and fun for all of those involved. Before I get into the more complex mechanics at play in Metallic Racing, as well as examples of the game in play, allow me to break down how the game is set up. First, the board is set down, which is pretty self-explanatory. Then, one player will take the standard Charismatic Moments, here represented by the cards in the green sleeves, and shuffle them. Once they are shuffled, each player will then receive 4 of the cards. Another player will then shuffle the unique Charismatic Moments, which are represented by those in the purple sleeves. Once they are shuffled, each character will get 1 of the 4 cards. Once that is done, the standard Charismatic Moments will be placed where the deck is indicated on the board. After this, each player will select what piece they want to represent them during Metallic Racing. The dice is then rolled to determine who will go first, with the highest roll being the player who goes first. In case of a tie, there will be rerolls until there is no longer a tie between the players who had the initial tie. After one player goes first, the game will proceed clockwise from them. As stated earlier, players are not allowed to move their own piece on their turn in Metallic Racing. What do they do instead? Well, let me explain. On a player's turn, they have 2 main options present to them. One will be explained later since it's a bit more complex and ties into the Charismatic Moments, while the other one is the much more standard one you will see throughout the game. Here, a player announces which of the other 3 players' piece they intend to move. They then roll the dice, and whatever number they roll, they will then move the piece that many spaces. The reason why a player must declare who they are moving before rolling the dice is for the sake of fairness. You see, on a player's turn, everyone but them is allowed to play one of the Charismatic Moments. But they must do it after the dice has been rolled. This is done to spice up the game, make it more exciting, and help it move along a bit faster. The reason why the player whose turn it is cannot play a Charismatic Moment on this turn is because that was found to be unfair and weighted the odds too much in their favor. When it comes to playing Charismatic Moments on a turn, they will be played until one of 3 scenarios happen. The most likely being that players simply choose to stop playing, them being satisfying without the turn is gone. The second being that players have run out of Charismatic Moments in their hand. And the last being a case where one of 2 Charismatic Moments that have the ability to force the turn to end are played. After this happens, all players will always replace the cards that they have spent up, and the turn will move on to the next player. Cards used here will then be discarded in piles in front of the players who have played them. If the deck ever runs out, the cards found in the discarded piles will all then be reshuffled in order to form a new deck to continue play with. Allow me to explain how each individual Charismatic Moment works. In the standard Charismatic Moments, there are 6 different types, and they are as follows. The first of the standard Charismatic Moments is Reversal of Fortune. What this Charismatic Moment does is, instead of moving forward the number of spaces shown by the dice, the selected piece will move backwards. The second Charismatic Moment is titled Double Time. The way this Charismatic Moment works is that when played, it makes the piece chosen move twice the amount of spaces shown by the dice. Next up is Me First. What this Charismatic Moment does is it makes the dice number be applied to the piece of whichever player plays it. The next Charismatic Moment is Try Again. What this does is force the dice to be re-rolled once it has been played. Now, before getting into the last 2 standard Charismatic Moments, I would like to say that each of the ones I have previously discussed will have their effects stacked as they are played throughout a turn. For example, if a player rolls a 6 on their turn, and the player whose piece is being moved plays double time to move up 12, they will instead be moved back 12 spaces if someone plays Reversal of Fortune on that turn. Now, getting into the last two standard charismatic moments, first we have No You Don't. Alongside the following charismatic moment, this one has the special ability that once it is played, it will automatically end the turn. Alongside that, what No You Don't does is cancel out every other previously played charismatic moment, and make it to where the initial roll of the dice takes effect, and moves the piece forward. An example of this will be shown later when I discuss examples of the game at play. The last of the standard charismatic moments, and the second one which also ends the turn, is Stuck in Place. Stuck in Place is basically a charismatic moment that causes everything else that happens in the turn to be meaningless. Once it is played, all of the other charismatic moments are cancelled out, and the piece does not move a single space. On top of this, both Stuck in Place and No You Don't can only be played after another charismatic moment has been played. Now, with the more standard charismatic moments out of the way, let us move on to the unique charismatic moments. These are handed out at the beginning of the game and may be played on a player's turn as an alternative to the standard picking of a piece and rolling of the die, but they can only ever be used once. The unique charismatic moments are as follows. The first of the unique charismatic moments is Trapped. The way Trapped works is that when you play it, you select another player's piece, and that piece is not allowed to move until it is your turn again. Next up is Gambler's Roll. This is a unique charismatic moment that allows a player to roll the dice twice and then move their piece up that number of spaces. Next is Fan's Favorite. What this does is allow a player to apply any one standard charismatic moment to a roll of the dice, which they can then apply to any of the pieces. The final of the unique charismatic moments is Now You See Me. This allows a player to swap the place of their piece with the place of a piece belonging to another player. The way that unique charismatic moments works is that they can be done alternatively to your standard roll of the dice on your turn. You must merely announce that you are playing yours, and that this is the one time in the game you are allowed to play it. Let me give some examples of how gameplay is altered once you throw charismatic moments into the mix. Take a turn where a player declares they are moving the blue piece, and they roll a 2. The player in control of the blue piece then plays double time so that they will move 4 spaces. A different player counters this by playing Reversal of Fortune, so that the player controlling the blue piece will move back 4 spaces. Another player plays Try Again, and the reroll is 6, making them move all the way back to start. The player controlling the blue piece sees all this happening, decides they do not like this turn of events, and decides to play No You Don't, meaning they only move up 2 spaces, but none of the bad things that were going to happen to them actually do take effect. Another example of how they would impact the game comes here. A player declares they are going to move the orange piece. They roll and get a 6. The player playing the pink piece decides to play me first and double time, allowing them to instead move up 12 spaces. The owner of the orange piece does not like this, so they play Stuck in Place, meaning that no one is allowed to move. Allow me to do an example with the unique charismatic moments. For this example, I will be using Fan's Favorite, since it is a bit harder to explain than the other ones. Now, on the player who owns Fan's Favorite turns, they see that green is in the lead. They start off the turn by announcing they will be playing Fan's Favorite instead of rolling the dice. They then put down the card and pull a Reversal of Fortune from their hand. They declare that this will be what they will be using with Fan's Favorite. They then roll the dice while saying that they will be making the dice impact the movement of the green piece. They roll and get a 3, and the green piece is then forced to move back 3 spaces. Ultimately, the game ends when a piece is moved across the finish line. Normally, players will be placed depending upon how far they are from the finish line, but if players want and are willing to put in the effort, they can count up how many charismatic moments they use throughout the game. So, say you have a case where blue crosses the finish line. Each other player would then count how many charismatic moments they used up, with green using the most, pink using the least, and orange being somewhere in the middle. And as such, green would be in second, orange would be in third, and pink would be in last in this case. Now, this is optional since it will be a bit difficult with the reshuffling of cards to keep up with that. But just keep in mind this is a way to play the game that helps reinforce the idea of using charismatic moments. And that is my game Metallic Racing. I would like to thank you for your time, and would hope that anyone who watches this and goes on to play the game thinks they will have a fun time with it. Thank you, and goodbye.